All right. Hey, y'all. I'm Jennifer with Spark Flash Fiction, and tonight I am talking to Sharon Hughson, who is one of our authors in our latest issue, Love Unleashed. And you may recognize her because she also wrote for our fantasy issue. So that was really fun. So we get to talk to her again. So just in case you missed it last time, I'm going to go ahead and read her bio to introduce her. All right. Sharon Houston loves the portal into stories. She writes fiction and coaches writers at her home on the Columbia River in Oregon. In her free time, Sharon enjoys playing piano, walking, biking, hiking, crocheting, and traveling with her husband. With two grown sons living nearby, she often spoils her four grandchildren, much to the chagrin of her two entitled cats. So let's go ahead and talk about your story because I'm curious what inspired your story since you have cats and obviously not a ferret. So,
I
what inspired you to write about your ferret?
do not have a favorite. Well, when I read the call, the submission call, I mean, in the summer, I think, when you guys put your topics out, right? And so I looked and I went, ooh, that would be fun. But it was like, think outside the box. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to do cats. I'm not going to do dogs. So I thought, well, what would be a fun animal? And I got an idea for the meet cute, which is my favorite thing. So, and I thought, oh, a ferret would work. Because at first I was thinking it was going to be a pet rat. But then I went, I don't know if that'll go over. Although I did notice there was one, right? Yeah. So, but I dated a guy in high school who had a ferret, and I know an author who fosters ferrets. So I thought, oh, I can totally go to Jennifer and ask her, another Jennifer, not you, obviously, and ask her all about the ferrets and see if if a ferret would actually do the things that I'm envisioning this ferret doing for my story. And she did. We had a great, it's filled my whole Facebook Messenger because that's how we were going back and forth. And so, yeah, so I just thought a ferret that escapes a bag and makes a mess with the guy. I was first going to have him like steal his sandwich or something. But I went away from that. I thought, oh, well. So I went away with that. And she said they don't usually take really big stuff, that they would take small stuff. Like if there's half a cracker there, yes, but probably not a whole sandwich. So tried to be realistic. So.
Which is always a fine line in fiction because it's technically not true anyway, but you still want that like realistic vibe in your story, which I find really hard. But back to pets. I want to hear about your two entitled cats. What are their names and what kind of cats are they?
All right. So Captain Hook, he's domestic medium hair. He was trapped by my friend. So this is an interesting story. We took my son to college and we had friends who lived in the same town as my son's college. And so we were setting up his apartment and everything. And we went out to pizza, and I was talking about how I really wanted another kitten, and I loved kittens, and blah blah blah. And so because we had just had to put like a year before, put one of our cats down, she had cancer, and so it was like, oh, I think I'm ready for another kitten. And so my friend's wife is like, well, at the bank where I work, there's been a mom with two little kittens, so let me see if I can trap it. And so she took the pizza, we had leftover piece of pizza from our pizza dinner, put it inside a live trap that they used to trap the skunk because they had skunk problems on their property, but also raccoons or whatever. And the next morning when she went, there was Captain Hook, little tiny. He was about 5 months old, and he was so feral and he was so afraid, and he still is kind of an afraid cat. And so what's unique about him, he has tabby markings. He's brown and black. I could have brought photos, but I don't want to be that person. But his tail is bent. So it's not a minx tail. It's actually bent. And when I asked the vet about it, if something happened to him or whatever, and the vet said, no, sometimes they just get, when they're born, during the birth, when they come out of the birth canal, it gets bent. And then that's how it is. Because I had seen another cat that had just barely the little tip was. So his looks like it's really wide tail because it's bent almost in half. So, and he can really smack you with that thing too. It's a weapon because it's like got a lot more bulk than a regular cattail does. So he's kind of he's really possessive. He's definitely my cat. Very possessive. But when he gets mad at me, he will cuddle up with my husband. So that's how he shows, oh, I'm mad at you. Because look, I'm laying with dad. You know, you know how cats are. If you have cats, if you've been around cats, they have attitude. So my other cat is a girl, and her name is Tweety Paws, and she's a black tuxedo cat. So it has the white paws and the white vest and about half of a mustache, white chin. So my youngest son and his wife brought her to us when we moved to this house because again, I had an older cat and she was sick. And when we moved to this house, I went, she's not going to do well because when they move, it's very upsetting to cats, right? And she'd lived there her whole life. So I took her, put her to sleep, horrible. And so I was like, all right, well, in a while, I'll get another cat. I always like to have at least two because I feel like they need each other. Cat would not agree. Cat would say, I can be the only cat. Thank you very much. So they showed up one day with this cat, and she was a year old, so she wasn't a kitten really. And she is just the biggest lover of all time. And she puts up with all of his guff, and she will chase him and she will get him to play. But she loves everyone. So if you come to my house, he will run and hide, but she will come out and decide if you are good enough for her to sit on your lap. But she pretty much loves everyone. So, which really, the people who don't like cats, they're like, why is your cat bothering me? I'm like, because she loves everyone. She doesn't care if you like cats or not. So anyway, they're like black. They're like night and day. So as far as personalities, so that's kind of fun too.
That kind of, I know this is totally random, but we're romance writers. So, of course, my mom's going to go here, but it reminds me of those opposite attracts romances where one of them is just like very standoffish, just like, get away from me. And the other person is just like super friendly and like, let's be friends. That's kind of what that reminds me of. But I want to ask you because you're obviously a cat person, but you have a novel that has a dog in the meet cute. I think it's called An Unexpected Homecoming. Tell us a little bit about that novel.
All right. Yes. So that is a scene that came to me. It's a lot of times that's how it happens for me. Like I thought, what if this gal's running and she runs across this wounded dog? She's running on the road and maybe it got hit by a car or something, and she takes it to the nearest place and meets a guy. And so that is actually how it happens. Although he wasn't hit by a car, he stepped in a gopher hole or whatever, or I should say she, the dog's a she. So, but hurt herself and was laying by, it's a dirt road. And so, but my gal is running. So, she's a soldier without a mission, and he's a cowboy about to lose his ranch. That is the tagline for that story. So it actually is 3 novellas that I put into one novel, into a collection. They were published separately. And then my publisher was like, we have it, let's put them all in the collection too. And then when they handed me the rights back, I said, well, I'm going to republish the collection. So I did, and change title, cover, blah, blah, all that. But yeah, so the first story is kind of their just get together story. And the second is kind of Jazz's story where she deals with her issues. That's the Shiro's name. And then the third one is when Bailey deals with his issues. So there's romance in both. There's kind of a breakup-ish scene in both, in all 3 of them. I mean, they follow the arc each novella does because they were standalones at one point. So, but they are 2 of my favorite characters. I really love Jazz and Bailey. They are great characters.
So where,
you know how it is. Sometimes certain characters just stay with you afterwards.
Yeah, they really do. Well, where can readers find this book? Because this sounds like really good.
So all my books, of course, are on my website, SharonHughson.com. I have a books page, but I don't sell my books there. I only sell my books at Amazon. So they'll have to go to Amazon. However, I do have a signed book, autograph book that you can order an order form on my book page. So, and I do have, well, actually, I have Love's Texas Homecoming which is what it was when my publisher had it. That's what I have copies of. But it is the same story, An Unexpected Homecoming. So
Okay. Do you have like any affiliate links on your website where if we went to your website and clicked the buy link and it took us to Amazon, you would get a little bit of commission for that?
I don't, I feel like that's backwards. I mean, I think I know authors do it, but I mean, I'm going to earn money because it's my book, right? So
Yeah.
I don't usually use affiliate links for my own stuff. I do for other stuff that I promote, but
Good deal.
not usually that. Does that
I
make
just
sense?
thought I'd ask because we usually direct readers to the author's website if that's the case. But in this case, y'all just go to Amazon
Yeah.
and search Sharon Hughson, and I'm sure it will turn up. So now, with it being December, Sharon, I feel like I have to ask this question because we all love a good holiday romance. So tell us a Christian, I mean not a Christian, a Christmas romance. It can be secular if you want, but tell us a Christmas romance that you just loved.
So, last 4 years, I've been watching Hallmark starting at Thanksgiving time and just watching it. And there's a few of those I like, but when I was thinking about this question, I have to go with my classic, the classic movie I watch every Christmas, and I've had since for a long time, White Christmas. I love that romance because you've got the two sisters and then you have the two partners. And so, I mean, it's an old movie, right? So, but Bing Crosby, who doesn't want to listen to him sing, right? And it's just, I don't know, I like the romance in that because it has all the typical stuff. Like at first you're just, it's they hate each other type thing or whatever, the opponent thing, which isn't usually my favorite romance, but I think it's because I like the interaction between the sisters and between the two partners. So, as well as the romantic interaction. And you do have the two different kinds. I don't know if you're familiar with the romance, but the one guy is like, I'm never getting married, blah, 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 and his partner is like, I need to fix you up with somebody. So it's like, why are you going to fix him up if you don't want to get married? That's it. But in the end, they are each with one of the sisters. So
No, I really need to watch this movie because everyone keeps telling me how wonderful it is, and I have yet to watch it. So I need to remedy that. I did read last year. I read a romance that was inspired by White Christmas. Has that ever been something that you've thought about? Because sometimes when we love a storyline so much, we get ideas for an adaptation, and then other times we're like, I don't even want to touch it because it's just so wonderful. Like I don't even want to try because I might mess it up.
yeah, I hadn't really thought of it before, but now that you've given me the idea, I'm going to be thinking about it. But I probably will fall into the second camp, like, oh, but it's awesome. You can't top the original. It's so good. So, but I will be thinking about it now. Thanks, Jennifer.
It almost feels like a curse because sometimes I feel like I have too many ideas and not enough time to actually flesh them out. So I'm going to kind of apologize, but also kind of giggle gleefully that I put that in your head. So you have a book releasing in March. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that story?
Okay, so the title is The Promised Plan, and it's really different. It's a story from my heart that I wrote the first iteration during National Novel Writing Month 2014. So that's 8 years ago. And that was right after my mom passed. And it was me processing some of my grief because that's what the story's about. It's about three women processing their grief over the loss of their mom, grandma. And it was inspired by something that's true, kind of. And the characters are two sisters and a niece. So it has a disclaimer in there. This is not my sister and my niece, So even though it is inspired. So my mom made reservations at a timeshare in Victoria, BC for the four of us to take a girls' trip. And then she passed away before we were able to take that. So when the trip came up, my stepdad was like, are you guys going to take the trip? And we're like, no, we can't do it. And so he canceled it. So I thought, but what if we did go? What would it be like? And I'm like, and what if things were different? And my brain just started making a story out of this. So this is how things happen. So what I've done here, I did take it, the second iteration of this was an actual novel, 72,000 words that I pitched, and it's women's fiction. So I was told it had to be 80 to 100,000 or they wouldn't even look at it. He liked my premise, but the agent I pitched it to, but he said he wouldn't even look at it unless it was whatever, not that, at least 80,000. He said, especially since you have 3 women. So that's a lot of emotion that's going to need to be processed. So I said, okay. So put it away. I did a pit mat on it. I had an agent request the whole thing for that, but didn't go like she thought it should. And I just couldn't let it go. So this past year, when I was doing my December thing that we talked about before, figuring things out, I thought, I'm going to do something with Elephant in the Tea Room is what the original short story was called, because they went to the big fancy tea at the Empress Hotel that you always hear people talk about, the fancy teas. I mean, you go to London and have them too. But my mom loved it. It was something that she was like, oh, we are totally doing that. And we're going to wear hats and we're going to da-da-da. And so it was like, that has to be part of this thing. And so I just thought, okay, what if everything kind of comes out in the tea room when they're at the tea room? And so the story was called Elephant in the Tea Room. And now one of the stories in the collection is called Elephant in the Tea Room. And it looks very different from that first story, which is a very interesting thing too. So what I've done is I took a bunch of short stories from the different gals' points and put them in so it flows. My sister says it reads like a serial novel, like if it was a Kindle, Vella, different, but they're different perspectives. Most of the Kindles Bellas I've read are all one narrator through it. Or if it has two, they give you both of them in each time they do it. So these are actual stories. Each one is from the different gals' point of view. The first one is from the moms. The first story is from the moms as she's planning it. So you get to see her, thus the title has the plan in it. And then it goes from there. So there's a few scenes. I mean, the one scene is definitely, I was with my mom when she passed away. And that is a short story in the thing. And so I pulled on those emotions in that day to write that. So it's really close to me, close to my heart, but I'm far enough away from that loss now that I feel like it's a good time that it can go out in the world, because I do feel like it has value. And every one of my beta readers is like, oh my, this is really good. This is going to be impactful, Sharon. This is going to help people to process their grief and appreciate their loved ones and just different things that came back. So
well, that sounds really good. That's one of the things that I love about stories. Writing them can be therapeutic, but also reading them can be therapeutic, because sometimes, even if it's a fictional character, just that thought that someone else is going through something that we have been through can help us process what we just went through. Yes. But we can project it onto a fictional person to give us a little bit of distance to then begin to process everything that was going on. So that sounds wonderful. And so I said it releases in March, but do you have an exact date?
That's right. March 7th, 2023 is when it releases. If you go to my blog, which you can find on my website, I have been putting an excerpt from the stories so that you can meet the 3 women who are the main characters. So I've been doing that, some excerpts from their stories to try and, gear up some excitement. And I'm going to be dropping those in my newsletter as well. Once we get going, I will have it up for pre-order in February. So right now it's with my first round of edits with my editor. So in a few weeks, I'll be working on that. So.
All right. Now, so you have a blog and you have a newsletter. Where on social media are you the most active where readers could also connect with you?
So Facebook, probably. I don't have I do have a readers group there. I feel like, I don't know. A lot of readers don't necessarily interact with me. I have a few there who've interacted with me on my Facebook page. So yeah, I don't know if that's where I'm the most active. I've tried to get active on Instagram and I just can't get myself to do it. But if you read my blogs and you respond, I always reply to the comments that are on my blogs. So that's another way. If you subscribe to my newsletter and you respond to my newsletter, I always reply to those as well. So,
Okay. Good to know. So we've talked a lot about readers and such. So let's switch gears just a teensy little bit for the writers because I am curious. You mentioned to me before that you were doing some developmental edits and you're also a story coach. So, what is a mistake that you often see writers make that probably we do like subconsciously and we don't even realize that we've done it?
so do you mean like editing, like word use thing, or do you mean like a story use thing?
Either one would be fine.
Um, the eyes flying. My eyes
Ah,
flew through whatever. Really? That sounds painful. So your eyes flew. It's your gaze that flies across the room or whatever. So that's definitely one. The strange body parts, but sometimes you might do it with your hands too. Um, but eyes are usually the most familiar one. Overuse of some words like just.
okay.
People are using that all the time. And I'm like, no, why? It doesn't even mean anything. It doesn't even have meaning. Um, and the other thing is using descriptors with their speech tags. She said softly. Well, she whispered then, right? Or um, with their verbs. She walked quickly. Well, then choose me something else. She marched, she strode, there's lots of verbs. So it's using either adverbs or adjectives because it can be the same with nouns that they use weak noun and then use some descriptors with it. So I am the less is more. I want to say it was Hemingway who said, using the white word, why use three words if one word will say what you need to, or something similar. So there's other writers that say the whole thing with the speech. If you find the right word, then you've nailed it. That's what you want to do. So
Gotcha. It's funny that you say that because I remember at a conference being in a class, and not an editor, a literary agent was talking about some of her pet peeves. And it was the overuse of words like just and the flying body parts. And so, yeah, I think that must be a very common thing. And I know I'm really bad to use just. That's just my word. It's just.
and I'm okay if they have a character who they say it a lot, and that's then can be that character's quirk or whatever.
Yeah.
That's how they talk. But then again, you don't want it to be in every single time they say something because then it becomes like droning. But if you have them say it like, once a page or once every 2 pages, they're using it because that's their thing, then fine. But then I would definitely say use your search on Word and take out every other just that's in your manuscript because you have a character who's going to be overusing it. So
It's kind of like when I was in middle school, I had a teacher who told us to stop saying like in sentences unless we were like comparing something. Um, in other words, don't do what I just did. Because she said she got so tired of when people were talking to her, like, because like when you go to the like store and then you like find something. She said she was like, I don't even listen to what you're saying because I'm too busy counting how many times you use like. So I guess it's similar to that when an editor's reading a story and they're like, okay, they just used 5 just on this page alone. Um, it's funny that in idiosyncrasies, I can't even talk, the idiosyncrasies that we each have, and we don't even realize it until someone else points it out to us, which is one of the beneficial things about editors
yes.
because we're so close to our work, we can't see it. But thank
I'm
you so
really
much.
funny about word repetition. So it's not just if you used walked 3 times on one page, I'd be like highlighting it going, we can do something else besides walk or any word. It's something that stands out to me when you do word repetition. And there's sometimes when it's good for emphasis, or sometimes there really is no other word. Like if you're a fantasy author and you've made up a word for something, then you see what I'm saying? There really is no other word. And then you have to. So there's exceptions to that. But if you don't have to, don't do it. I have a big thesaurus. Use it. You can even go online and use a thesaurus and find a different word. So,
Yeah, thesaurus. Thesauri. Thesauri are very useful.
right?
I had to catch myself there. All right. Well, thank you, Sharon, for joining us. It is always a pleasure to talk to you in these interviews. I really enjoyed that. And thank you, everyone who joined us, whether live or on the replay. If you have any questions for Sharon, just pop over to her website and send her an email through her contact. Sign up for her newsletter. And I'm putting her story in the comments right now so that you can go read about the mischievous ferret, which
Pinky.
actually,
Pinky.
yes, Pinky.
Pinky the matchmaker.
I love it. That was such a cute story. And if you
Oh,
love like kind of like the new adult romances as they call them with the college students, which I think is interesting that they have a term for them now, then you will love the story because it's about college students and it's just so cute and it's so sweet and it's a nice little thing to read before you go to bed at night and you don't have to get mad at yourself because you stayed up until 2 a.m. reading because it's very short. Um, but hop over to her website, sign up for a newsletter, go follow her on Facebook, and keep an eye out for her story that is coming out in March. And y'all have a wonderful weekend. And I think we are all excited about Christmas, so don't get too antsy. Everyone enjoy the season and read all the holiday romances that you can cram in the next few weeks because it's apparently considered taboo after December 25th. Although I will admit that I will read them in like February or March or July. Because why
sometimes
not?
you need a little Christmas.
Yes, sometimes you just need a little Christmas in your life. So why not?
Right.
Good night, everyone.